Okay, Squad Fam, welcome to another Sinister Sunday. And today I think we're going to go to Canada again. Yes, they have interesting places in Canada. So they have a place called Fort George, and it's like a castle in Nova Scotia. Okay, so let's get right into it. So as you see, I'm all ready to go to this castle. I've got my crown on, so let's go. A sudden knock at the door might urge you to open the door, but while in this 300-year-old, you might not find anyone upon opening the door. Why this happens? Well, the ghost dwelling in the fort are the best persons to answer you. Do you still want an answer? And if you dare to explore more, you can also encounter an elderly lady looking at herself in the mirror. Ooh. A group of ghostly people chatting around a table, and a lot more. All right, well, let's go to the castle. Let's see what Wikipedia has to say. So Fort George, also known as Citadel Hill, is a hill that is a National Historic Site in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. 4 fortifications have been constructed on Citadel Hill since the city was founded by the English in 1749 and were referred to as Fort George, but only the third fort built between 1794 and the 1800s was officially named Fort George. According to the General Orders of October 20th, 1798, it was named after King George III. The first two and the fourth and current fort were officially called the Halifax Citadel. The last is a concrete star fort. Oh, that's cool. The Citadel is the fortified summit of the Citadel Hill. The hill was first fortified in 1749, the year that Edward Cornwallis oversaw the development of the town of Halifax. Those fortifications were successfully rebuilt to defend the town from various enemies. Construction and leveling have lowered the summit by 10 to 12 meters. While never attacked, the citadel was long the keystone to defense of the strategically important Halifax Harbor and its Royal Navy dockyard. Today, Parks Canada operates the site as the Halifax Citadel National Historic Site of Canada. It has restored the fort to its appearance when it was built in its Victorian era. Ooh, nice. Now, let's hear about the ghosts. Okay, so basically there's tons of ghost stories. They do ghost tours there mostly because as soon as people get there, they're like, where do you keep your ghosts in this old creepy castle and this old creepy fort? And so they started doing ghost tours. But we dug through old newspapers and they interviewed old employees and uncovered more than 36 ghost stories. And that number continues to grow all the time. The stories keep growing and growing and growing. Now, is it because there's really ghosts there? Let's see. Okay, so there's talks of a gray lady. There's also talks about 2 soldiers who were stationed at the site 250 years ago, who witnessed a strange visitor entering the captain's chambers, only for the visitor to vanish when they followed him. Other stories covered a mysterious death, a groom who bought matching caskets for a wedding that never happened, and strange footprints found inside a practically sealed off section of the fortress. Wow. So yeah, so there is I guess he was a soldier, but he was high up. He was probably the general. And he died a horrible, violent death. and they say they see his lover walking down the stairs in a white dress. So an employee actually saw her, so that's interesting. His grave is in the cemetery on the actual site because they have a cemetery there, which probably where they're getting all the ghosts from. One of Halifax's most infamous spooky sites is the Five Fishermen Restaurant and Grill, perched on the corner of Carmichael and Argyle Streets. Once having served as a mortuary, it's perhaps not surprising that the 194-year-old structure is equally known for its hauntings as well as its halibut. The four-story brick and wood building opened in 1816 as a schoolhouse and was eventually taken over by a local family and turned into a funeral home. It became the last stop for all sorts of victims of two significant disasters of the 20th century: the sinking of the Titanic off Newfoundland in April 1912 and the Halifax explosion of 1917. Titanic, people. Whoa. The explosion occurred when a supply vessel and another ship collided in the harbor, killing 2,000 people and leaving some 9,000 injured. Shane, the Five Fishermen's general manager, says tales of cutlery moving on its own, disembodied voices, and shadowy figures have actually been good for business. Amen. I would like to go there. What about you, fam? Coming with me to the Haunted Fisherman for some halibut? Shane recalls a recent incident when diners tried to send a text message from their table, but instead of the intended message, Shane says only one word flashed on the recipient's mobile phone, which was death. Ooh, spooky. Hal Thompson, who's one of the officers who work at the site, said a woman who visited the site spied a uniformed man enter a room and seemingly vanish. The woman was unaware of the site's ghostly reputation and wanted to know how the man, who she presumed to be a staff member, managed to leave undetected from a room with only one exit. And there was another problem. No one at the Citadel was wearing the type of uniform the woman had described. Ooh. Mr. Thompson remembers joking at first, saying perhaps the woman saw a ghost, but then he began to wonder. Doesn't make any sense. There should not have been anyone wearing that uniform and disappearing into thin air like that, you think? He recalls. So that's fairly convincing story from the woman. Other sites that are rumored to be haunted can be found in and around Halifax Historic Harbor. Near the waterfront is the Alexandra Keith's Brewery, which is said to be inhabited by the ghost of the brewmaster himself. McNabb's Island, accessible only by boat, ghost ship not required, is reported to be haunted by a ghost of a former resident who was found drowned. At least two companies in Halifax offer ghost walking tours for visitors eager to learn about the creepy side of the city. One popular stop for ghost hunters is the oldest building in Halifax, which is St. Paul's Angelic Church, just across the street from City Hall. From a sidewalk on the right side of the church, the shadowy silhouette of a man's face can be easily seen in the upper left rounded window. According to the church's website, the window shattered in the Halifax explosion, where all those people died. And it shattered in the profile that resembles one of the assistants at the time, and it sends shivers down many people's spines. Whoa, so one of the guys who worked there. Whoa, that is spooky, actually. Never heard of such a thing. Okay, Andrew, a folklore expert at the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic, isn't convinced the window is haunted, but he says everyone loves a good ghost story, whether or not it's true. No, well, we like true ghost stories. So, I mean, hey, the window shattered. Did they never fix it? Curious to know more about that window. Oh, okay. So in the museum, so the museum has to be haunted too. The museum has a number of artifacts connected to popular ghost stories. Okay. Among the items are charred pieces of the young Taser. Ooh. That exploded in the bay in 1813. The vessel is now said to sail those waters as a ghost ship, all raging in flames. Whoa. I would like to touch that artifact. I wonder if they let you. Some will say you can hear the creak of the rigging and the muttering of the men all the way across the bay. Whoa. So it's not only the buildings, the water's haunted. Well, they have Titanic people there. So this sounds like a really interesting place. I wonder if we can find anything else on this. I mean, not like that's not enough, but I'm sure there's more. But all those soldiers that were chained up in the cots, so I would say they're all roaming the grounds. There's a cemetery there, right? So yeah, crazy, crazy place. Okay, guys, so I wanted to add in some pictures. So here we talked about the Titanic. So here's some pictures from the cemetery of the Titanic. Victims, actually 328 bodies washed up and were buried. So here's those pictures. Really something else, huh? And then we have some pictures of the explosion that we talked about. Um, so here's those pictures. Those are really crazy. Oh, viewer discretion is advised because we're taking a picture of one of the surviving 38 children and what they look like after the explosion. So I have a picture now. This is crazy to me. The Canadian government actually made a stamp of the Gray Lady. Remember we talked about the Gray Lady? Yeah, very briefly because didn't have much on her where I was reading, but obviously the actual restaurant, the Five Fishermen's, that used to be a morgue, then and now picture of that. So there's that in here. We also have some random pictures of the site, like where they do the ghost tours and just a little of the historical park part with everybody in their uniform. Is the staff there. What other photos do we have? I'm looking for you guys. Okay, and there's how it looks. It's like a star shape. That's how the Halifax was built. Look how pretty that is. Most of it is stuff about the ghost tour because it's, the biggest attraction there. So I hope you enjoyed the pictures that I added in for you that I found. Yeah, so I would definitely like to go to that place. I would still wear a crown, not this one because it's a Snapchat one. I'd have to get an actual crown. If anybody has one to lend me, just send it on over to me for when I go to Canada. I'll let you know when. All right, guys. Thank you for joining me for another Sinister Sunday. This was really fun and interesting. I liked to hear all the stories. And if anybody ever visited this place, like always, leave me a comment. And if you didn't visit the place, leave me a comment anyway. I love to hear from you guys. If you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing. I usually am not so gorgeous, but today I got all dressed up for you guys. So consider subscribing, hit the notification bell for more content. Thumbs up, and we'll see you on the next adventure.